to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, the host of this podcast, episode 101. And I'm super excited because I'm actually sticking to the structure that I set out to do, which was I had 100 ideas roughly in the last episode. And they were based on 10 different things that you could do to help your life be better with ADHD, to manage life better with ADHD. And I thought what I can do is spend more time with each of these because you really can't go deep into any one of them in one podcast and episode. And I even went over an hour just talking about them somewhat more briefly. And so right afterwards, I thought, okay, look at the next one, 101. What are you going to do? And immediately I didn't want to do it. I looked at the second one, the third, and I thought, stick with the schedule, stick with what you said you were going to do. I kept resisting that structure, just like I talked about a few weeks ago, of having an idea of how it needs to be and then thinking, I don't want to do that. And until a few hours ago, I was going to actually just be fine with that. I was going to do number 8 and have this episode be about that. But I thought, you can stick with structure, see if you can. So I am. I'm working with my brain. I talked my brain into it. I gave myself permission to not do it, and then I was able to talk myself into it. And this episode is about working with your brain. And it's something that we talk about a lot with ADHD. And I think the articles I see or the steps that I see to help with this talk about actually those other 9 things, like body doubling, having accountability, taking small steps. When something's overwhelming, do this, all these little tips, which are important. They're really helpful to do. You can see your strengths, you can create new patterns, new systems, all these things. All of those things are more action oriented. And except for, maybe the one about giving yourself more compassion, giving yourself grace. I guess that's action oriented too. It actually is. But the other ones are actually physically doing something, I think. And I thought, really, to work with your brain, you need to understand your brain. And it might not line up with everything that you read or learn about ADHD. It might be a little different. Might be a lot different. I was reading a little discussion on Reddit the other day, and something came up about empathy. And someone said that why is there this myth that empathy can be a trait of ADHD? There are actually studies that show the opposite of it. And she showed the study, and it was on children. And then I started to wonder, what about in adults? Maybe it changes. Empathy can be taught, it can be learned, not always as successfully in some than others. But I thought, has it been tested in adults? Has it been? But when I started thinking about it, even with my own children who have ADHD, a few diagnosed and one mom diagnosed, looking at the past in that child. And when I look back, one of them really struggled with empathy. The other 2 did have empathy, a lot of empathy for other people, feeling bad for the other team when you win the soccer game, but you feel sad for the other team. You have empathy for them. You can see that. That is an awareness that not everyone has, but 2 of my children had it. I've had it. Well, actually 3 of my children. Anyway, so you may learn some things and think, but for me, it's this way. And working with your brain doesn't mean just working with an ADHD brain, but it means working with your ADHD brain, or your brain that has ADHD traits, tricks. But it's really understanding. And some of that can be studying and learning, what are these symptoms that are common? Oh yeah, I do that. I wonder why, or what is this? A lot of it comes from awareness, noticing, looking, understanding. And self-awareness is one thing that many experts, doctors, psychiatrists who specialize in ADHD, self-awareness is one of the things that they say people with ADHD struggle with. That's another one where I think maybe not all people, and maybe not for you. Maybe you don't, maybe you're not self-aware as much as somebody else or in certain situations, but maybe you are. And I think I am. Maybe people around me don't think I am, but I think I am. And being aware is important, or you won't really know how to work with your brain, right? So you need to notice, when do I trip up? When do I mentally trip up, emotionally trip up? When am I not as in control as I'd like to be? Or physically, if you have any of those three things, emotional dysregulation is part of ADHD, maxing out mentally, having your brain not be able to keep track of things. Maybe sometimes it's better than others. So noticing, when am I better at being organized? What conditions allow that? What are my distractions? Who are my distractions? Is it more internal? Is it more external? Is it both? So when you start to notice that, like, I really love children. I love to be around children, but can I multitask? Can I get things done when I want to spend time with children? So just kind of seeing, if something that you're trying to do isn't working, then noticing that and maybe not pushing it in that situation anymore, or then in that circumstance. So there are just so many things that you can notice. And one could be when you're overwhelmed. Maybe you're not overwhelmed all the time, but maybe you do get that overwhelm that comes with ADHD. What can get you distracted? What can make it so you can't do something that you really want to do? When you're kind of have that, is it the kind of the overanalyzing? Is it, I'm gonna go and answer my emails, and you just get one email that talks about some sale that takes you to some website that reminds you it's somebody's birthday coming up, and then you spend all that time not doing it, you're avoiding, and maybe you are overwhelmed with it, what you need to do. And this is calming because you're in some kind of safe mode of, my body's and my mind's a little more relaxed because I can just focus on this right now, and I don't need to do the other thing. So just kind of noticing any patterns of when you really are capable and able to accomplish a lot, really productive, and when you just aren't. Maybe it's not just a certain time of the day or a certain time of the week, that maybe it's right when you get home from a trip. Have you ever noticed that you're different after you've been traveling? When you get home, are you able to just hit the ground running and get back into your routine, or is your brain just not quite together in a way that it would be normally? And giving yourself that grace for those days might not be quite so wonderful. Maybe taking some things off of your calendar if you can those days. So just noticing things like that. Noticing when or what your brain can remember. Can your brain remember facts? Like if you're in a class or something, somebody's teaching you something, you're listening to a podcast, you're trying to learn something, and you're even watching the news. I don't really watch the news anymore, but I notice it sometimes at some point in my life. I knew in school that it was hard for me to remember scientific facts, or, like the memorizing things or dates for history or something. I still got straight A's, so I must have found some little ways to memorize, but it was not easy at all. And once I got into college, I didn't get nearly as good grades. It was a lot harder. But some people don't have a hard time. They learn something, it sticks with them. A lot of people struggle with remembering facts. My husband remembers dates, numbers, all of those number specifics. I don't. In my mind, it's like, was it 20 or 2000? Was it 20 or 12? Like I might remember the first letter of something or a number in something. How big was it? I can be off by 1,000 times. My apologies for my alarm going off. If you could hear that, I have my yoga class, and that's why I didn't put my mat away. I was going to. That's thinking of things that you don't remember. I was going to put my yoga mat away before before I started doing the podcast, but I still have a little bit of time. But gotta set alarms. That's one thing I noticed. I won't remember. Hopefully, I will now that I don't have an alarm that's gonna go off. But anyway, yeah, noticing What does your brain when you forget, when you learn the hard way, you miss an appointment that's really important, or you miss paying your homeowner's insurance on time, when you knew it was coming up, but you thought, "Well, I'll wait till this day," or something, and you didn't put some kind of system in place to help you remember, it is it's a lot of work if you miss your deadline to get to yeah, I've learned the hard way a couple times on that. Things mistakes that cost money. You start to notice have the awareness of that more more often when it hurts. But just noticing what your brain can do, how much it can do. Sometimes you're super capable. Some it might be some area of your life. It might be some area where you're more gifted, or maybe when there are more people around, you're more energized, you do better in that situation. Maybe you do better working alone, all of those things. And even just noticing when you are your own distraction, when you are getting in your own way. Maybe it's not an email, maybe it's just your own thoughts that come up. So, all those things, as you start to learn about your brain and what's going on, that can be helpful to know how to work with your brain because you know what you're working with, right? Which reminds me, I just thought of something. Oh, it's down here at the bottom of my list. I thought I don't want to forget about this one. But also knowing when you need to slow down, when you need to push harder. Sometimes pushing yourself, you have a goal, you want to do it, it matters to you. You set a goal like to get up, go to the gym, go to the certain class, or whatever it is. You're not meeting somebody there, so you don't have that kind of obligation, and you see some other things that you could get done and you think maybe I should stay home, I'll just do this, and you keep talking yourself out of it. Your own brain gets in the way, and because you're having this conversation in your brain, you can actually take an active part in that, notice what's happening, and say, I really do want to be at the gym. And just say out loud, put on your shoes, walk out the door. I had a woman in my class last week who told me she had to do that. And she walked in a few minutes late. She said, "I had decided last night I was coming. I woke up thinking I was coming, and I talked myself out of it, and I just at some point just told myself, stop it with the reasons, stop it with the excuses, push yourself and get out the door." And she came, and I was really proud of her. And I've done the exact same thing before. So sometimes you do need to push yourself, and you are able to push yourself. You have that awareness of what's going on, and you can push yourself. Other times when maybe that voice in your head is like, I should do more, I should do more, I should do more. And your body's, it's really not going along with what's going on in your life. Maybe you need to get up early the next morning, or maybe you've been feeling more fatigued because you've been pushing yourselves too much. Then you know you need to slow down. So all of those things. Sometimes your rate goes up and you're not even exercising. Noticing that, am I getting anxiety? Just notice what's happening in your body. It's one of the great things about yoga is you get that opportunity to just notice what's happening in your body, and your body will go more this way, squishing, squishing, scrunching in and up. That's your tension. And then this is the relaxing, right? When you notice this happening, or the heart rate coming up, or you're just not able to get things done because, oh my goodness. Okay. My I'm recording on GarageBand. I need to turn off my screensaver because I was afraid it stopped recording. Sorry. I had to look at it and make sure it was. And I'm using two computers now, my new little system. But yeah, noticing, even if, like I mentioned before, do you want to just bolt and just run when you are faced with structure, but you know you need some structure? And then deciding, okay, how can I work with my brain here? I need to have a routine. Maybe I need to have a friend that I report to. What can I do to support myself when I'm getting in my own way, when I'm the one that's the problem here, that's causing the problem? Another thing that I think is kind of fascinating to know about your brain, because when we take medication for ADHD, it's because we're trying to put something into our body that is a chemical that can help the brain, right? And one of those things is dopamine. And I'm going to just look it up right here real fast. Yeah, I know these things, and yet when I'm faced with it, I was going to actually uh, look into this. So, dopamine, if you find, so this is noticing your brain, right? That you're noticing your patterns and stuff. If you find that you're craving sugar all the time, or you're always needing caffeine to keep going, or if you're just thinking, I need some sugar, I need some sugar, I need some carbs, I need some whatever, you don't really need it, you're not really hungry, but you feel like you need it. And that might be your body needing to get that dopamine that you're what- not you're needing, you're not low on it, and yet you kind of are. And this is how my psychiatrist explained to me. It's not that people with ADHD have less dopamine to begin with, they have more dopamine receptors. So you need more dopamine than the average person or the neurotypical person, the person who's not having extra dopamine receptors, in order to get your brain to function in a way that's helpful, that's helpful for you. So you're seeking that in some way. And there are supplements too, but that's what stimulants do is they create more dopamine in the body. And so there are different things that you can do. You could just Google yourself how to get naturally increased dopamine. It can happen in certain ingredients in foods or supplements or exercise or getting enough sleep. It helps regulate your dopamine level. Having more sunlight, being out in the sun, maybe not to the degree of, you using you overdoing it. I only say that because I love to be in the sun. So try not to be in the sun too long, too much, and without sunscreen. But having too much stress can deplete your dopamine levels. So the way that I kind of look at it is if you have more dopamine receptors, so let's say you make the same amount of money as someone else, but they live in an apartment and their monthly rent is half of what yours is. And I'm not saying that our dopamine receptors are twice as many as the others. I'm just making this simple, hopefully. But you have the same income, you have the same amount of money to pay your rent, but your house is more expensive. It costs twice as much. So you're not low on money technically compared to that other person, but you're still not able to pay your rent because you don't have enough because you have less same amount of money, but not enough money for that. So we need more dopamine in order to meet the needs of our brains, kind of that rent payment that's higher, if that makes any sense. But yeah, there's a lot of things that can bring dopamine. I think that's why I like being productive so much. When I organize, when I clean things, when I get things done, it brings it up. It brings it up and it makes me feel a lot happier. But if I don't have enough dopamine for my brain to actually get myself to do those things. But listening to music, there's a lot of things. Uh, having social interactions, there's, things, think of things that are happy things. I'm not 100% sure what the difference between serotonin is, how to increase serotonin naturally. Regular exercise, sunlight exposure, balanced diet, but rich in other things. So, exercise is a thing that boosts us up and gets the heart rate up. And so, if you've had times of your life, or maybe now, where your day goes so much better because you got up and exercised, part of that's the accomplishment thing, part of that is you've raised your serotonin. Have you ever been a runner? They talk about the runner's high. And I feel bad. There are people who have w- gone running or been runners much longer than I have that never had the serotonin or the runner's high. Once I got it, I was a runner for like 3 years or something. I spent most of my life hating running, and I just mean most of my life, like, as a child, in high school, couple years of college, I'd try to go running because I kept gaining weight and stuff, and that was the thing. People went jogging, they went running. And then maybe my junior year, and I was in college 5 years, but maybe my junior year, I started running more and found I actually got lost one day. I was running and it was getting dark, and usually I'd run maybe a mile or 2 and kinda hate it and just do it, and then, but I went running one way and then got curious, like, what the neighborhoods were like and stuff. I was running along the side of a mountain and ran 3 miles in that direction, and it was getting dark, and normally, if I ran that long, I just walk back because I think I don't like running that much, but I had to run back because it was getting dark, and I didn't feel safe running at night and by myself. I liked running by myself more than with other people, and so I ran all the way back and learned that that's when I got that boost of serotonin, and I was flying. It was, like, so easy, and it was definitely a runner's high. It was and so then I always ran 5 or 6 miles, and it wasn't that hard at the beginning because I knew what was coming. I knew how great it was gonna be, but yeah. Okay, I am gonna do pardon me while I Google for you, but difference I've looked this up before, but like I said, I don't always remember. Okay, it brought it up before I even wanted to. Okay, serotonin and dopamine, this is just AI telling me, are two neurotransmitters that play important roles in regulating mood, emotion, and behavior. While they share some similarities, they also have uh, distinct functions and effects. I'll do a different episode on that because I really do have a class in 12 minutes and I have to switch this up a little bit to do my yoga class here for the video. But serotonin, we need serotonin too. And yeah, serotonin contributes to feelings of well-being, happiness, and contentment. Dopamine enhances mood, motivation, and optimism, both important. So optimism goes along with happiness. And that whole motivation thing, that low dopamine thing, if you don't take ADHD medicine or any supplements, there are some supplements that give similar effects. Well, caffeine that gives similar effects as a stimulant or medications that increase your dopamine levels. But if you wondered, like, why am I always eating sugar? Or why am I always needing some caffeine and then I can get something done? It's not just because you're sleepy, it actually gives you that boost. The problem with the sugar is it gives you the boost and then it comes back down. And then you need more sugar and then you need more sugar and then you just eat it around the clock. Literally, 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 literally. Not maybe not while I sleep, but uh, it's a wonder, if you have sugar addiction or if you ever have. And I say that as a real term because there was a book that I read by a doctor, like a PhD medical doctor. I think she was. It was called Potatoes Not Prozac. Doesn't sound like a sugar addiction book, but if you ever read that book, I think she's a medical doctor. Maybe look up the author. Solutions for Sugar Sensitivity. It said it on the cover, the one they could have changed it, you know how they change things over time and redo. Okay, she has a PhD, maybe she's not a medical doctor. Kathleen, I don't know how you say her last name, is it DES, Dace, like Dace, Masons, Maisons, PhD in addictive nutrition. And so she did call it sugar addiction, but she talked about, how natural carbohydrates can help balance that out. And she even said that, my numbers aren't great. I think it was one third, one fourth, one third people, but this was studied back like in the early 2000s. When was the first book published? This one must be a newer one. Well, it says 2008, maybe. It says it's revised. Maybe it was 2008. That's early 2000s, right? So she said that there's just like some people can drink alcohol and not have a problem, not become alcoholics. A lot of people can eat sugar and they don't care about it. They really don't. And then there are some who are just like, oh, I gotta eat, I gotta eat, I gotta, I have a sweet tooth and that kind of thing. And if you are able to balance your dopamine in another way, whether it's medication, ADHD medication, my need to eat sugar totally has plummeted since I started ADHD medication. crazy, crazy to see. But that's noticing my brain. Now that I know that my brain needs more dopamine, and I was getting it a different way with the caffeine in the morning, the energy drink or whatever, and not saying I don't do that anymore, but maybe not to the same degree, or the sugar thing, and then you get that dopamine need met in a different way and find, "Oh, yeah, my brain." So you start to notice, when my brain is craving the sugar, is there another way to get that dopamine? Is there another way to get it, because that sugar is not gonna last very long, it's not gonna be a long-term solution, or am I having a hard time getting stuff done in the morning now, but I didn't when I used to exercise first thing? Well, you were able to boost that serotonin. Yeah. So noticing those patterns in your body is noticing the patterns in your brain. Your brain does everything. It does everything. It all starts with your brain. So in order to learn how to work with your brain, you need to understand how it's working or when it's not working. And I think that's going to be it for today. But yeah, notice what trips you up, literally, like falling down. For me, that's the impulse control problem. My brain's incapacity to slow down and think before it acts. That one's not always easy to stop, but sometimes I'm able to tell myself to slow down. So yeah, whatever system you hear about to do, and even from me, it may work great and it may not. It all depends on your brain. So learning about your brain so you can know when you hear about a new way to do something or what might be helpful to ADHD, you can fine tune that for you. And I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much. Little shorter episode, actually a lot shorter, less than half the size of the last one. But that's okay. I'm going to Disney World tonight, tomorrow, and Friday. So I needed to do this before I go. And after I teach my yoga class, I'm on my way. But thank you so much for being here. Thanks for supporting me just by listening. And if you have never downloaded an episode, and I don't know if you just subscribe or if you just click automatic downloads, but if you can do that, if it doesn't take up too much room on your phone, it helps my visibility a lot. I think it helps more than reviews, but if you want to leave a review too, a 5-star, even if you don't say anything, that would be great. It's always hard to say goodbye, but I will. Thanks so much. Bye.
Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me. I buttered my toast, spread on some grape jelly. I don't mean to boast, but I'm a chef and a good one. My grandma can't hear me. The breakfast is done, and getting colder, ever older, so I run. Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.